C. Allen here, better known as Chef Benet, and I am excited for another episode of Kidney Conversations. The reason why I'm excited today is because I have with me live in the studio Michelle Whitehead, who is a transplant coordinator at the GW Transplant Institute. So we're going to hear all about what in the world is going on in the world of transplants. I think it's important because everyone knows my story that I am a kidney transplant survivor, and I'm grateful today because Michelle was a part of that team who really made sure that I was well and took care of me really great. So first, let's welcome Michelle. Good morning, Michelle. So Michelle, I want to start off first with you telling us how in the world did you get into the industry of being a transplant coordinator?
Well, first, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. It's definitely a pleasure to still be involved in your care. As a nurse, I have been a nurse for 9 years now. I've been with the George Washington University Hospital for 6 years, and I was a float nurse. I actually was floating and going to different units around the hospital, and one of the managers from the transplant team, she knew me from me going around the hospital, and she put in a good word to Dr. Melanson and the team and asked if I could come and just join them for a few weeks. And after a few weeks of working with the team, they asked me to stay on permanently. So I've been with the transplant team for about 5 years now. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the life of a transplant, like a post-transplant patient.
Oh, well, it's very, very hectic. A lot of the times, the common misconception is that once a patient gets a transplant, that it's just easygoing and that life is just easy and free. But the first year is actually very, very time consuming, very stringent.
Amen. And amen. Go ahead.
That is definitely the case. And one good thing about George Washington University Hospital, with our post team, it really is a family feel. And I like to say that in the beginning, you love us. And then by the end of your first year, you hate us because we will nag you and nag you and nag you because right after transplant, it's really just strenuous, and we make sure that our patients are getting the care that they need, which requires constant calls, labs, visits with the clinic. And so, it's just something that we like to do, making sure that our patients are well taken care of. And we have a really huge multidisciplinary team. So with the post-transplant patients, they see the nurse, they see the dietitian, the social worker, the financial coordinator, the nephrologist, the surgeon. It's a whole group. This whole team is present and available for our patients to make sure that they're well taken care of.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Michelle, because I want the audience to know that we have Michelle here for a purpose. Michelle, do you remember when I called frantic right after my transplant? You remember that? So listen to me, everyone. So basically, the reason why I picked GW is because of Dr. Melanson, who came into the studios at Radio 1 when I was on the C. Allen Morning Show. And one of the things that Michelle just mentioned, which is so true, and that is that it's a team of people. And I went to a previous hospital first, and when I went to GW, everyone made me feel so good, and everything was just amazing for me. And so I'm not here to kind of plug GW because GW is one of the many hospitals that do transplants. However, I feel that GW is the best, not just because of me being there, but my actual experience. Because one thing that Michelle was mentioning was it's a team of people. So after transplant, first of all, you already your mind is already all over the place because you now have an opportunity to what I say is live again, and all of a sudden, and everything that the doctor said was true in reference to my skin cleared up, and so many things happen after transplant. However, it is a lot of doctor visits. So, and immediately when I came home, I had issues with changing myself to what medicine I'm supposed to take, even though they had a thorough post-op with me, I still had issues because, of course, all of this is brand new. The thing that I love about GW was the fact that anytime, morning, noon, or night, and I know I called her like 11 o'clock at night, and I was crying, I was all upset, I didn't know what was going on, and instantly, Michelle and the people there was like, listen, we got you. I want you to calm down, take some deep breaths, this is what I want you to do. And everything just worked out really well. So I'm really glad to have you here today. So my next question is, why normally after transplant, you guys want us to kind of like stay away from people for a while?
So that's a great question. So when Dr. Melanson transplants a kidney into our recipients, we have to remember that this kidney is considered a foreign object. Even if you have the right blood type and they match properly, it's still considered a foreign object. So it is important that we keep the immune system suppressed so that your body can take on that kidney and allow that kidney to just kind of settle in your body. And so because we are suppressing the immune system, we want to make sure that you're not getting sick. So some of the things that we require of our new transplanted patients, we don't want them out in public. We don't want them going to buffets. I don't know if you guys been to some buffets. I've seen a few people sneeze over food. So, we want to definitely look out for things like that. You want to avoid public transportation. And it's not forever. It's just, for now, because, in the beginning, we make sure that your immunosuppressant drugs, those are the drugs that keep the immune system down. We tend to give a higher dose of that right after transplant to really give your body a chance to take on that kidney. And so the last thing we want is for you or any of our patients to get sick. They are at a higher risk of getting bacterial, viral, and fungal infections. And now throwing COVID into the mix, that's just a whole nother layer of concerns. So it's all for the betterment of our patients. And thankfully, we can kind of, as time progresses, we can kind of loosen the reins. Not always, there's always going to be some strict, precautions for the rest of your life because we want to make sure you're safe. But, we can loosen the reins a little bit as time progresses. And we do biopsy of the kidney, make sure there's no issues on a cellular level. If you make it through the first year and there are no issues, then, you do have the opportunity to, fly out to Jamaica and go to Thailand or wherever.
I'm so glad you said that, Michelle, because I could not wait for my year to be up because I'm an avid traveler. I could not wait for the year to be up. And guess what, everyone? Listen to me, audience. The year was up April 9th. What was happening April 9th? COVID. So there was no traveling anywhere. And the funny thing is that I had tickets to Berlin, Germany to go there during the Easter holiday. And of course we couldn't go because of the COVID. So then let's ask another question. What would you tell transplant patients in reference to their animals? Because I have 3 dogs, 3 Cocker Spaniels. So when you first come home, what do you recommend in reference to the dog situation? Can I be around the dogs right after transplant surgery?
So typically what I tell patients are when they come for their first visits, I ask them, do you have animals? And if they say, yeah, I have a loving Cocker Spaniel, I'm like, okay, we won't tell you to send them to the pound. You can keep your dog. However, when it comes to cleaning up after your dog, when they go for walks, we would strongly recommend that a family member or a friend can do all the dirty work. If you don't have animals, we recommend you to not buy new animals. Please don't go and buy a cat or a bird or a dog because it's just one added layer of complications. But if you already have a dog, dogs are like family. So we would never want you to send your family members away.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this next question. What do you think is some of the common mistakes that patients make after a post-transplant?
Biggest mistake, I can't stress this enough, is going back to your life and before your end-stage renal disease. Not everyone, let me clarify. Of course, when you have end-stage renal disease, There's many reasons for that. So I can't say that every patient who has end-stage renal disease might have had like a lifestyle where they had hypertension or diabetes, because some things are genetic, some things you're just predisposed to. However, what I tend to find is, like, let's say there was a patient on dialysis and you were limited to eating potato chips, you know, and then they get this transplant and then they eat 5 king-size bags of potato chips every day. You know, there
Michelle,
has
stop
to still
talking
be
about me like that. Don't do me like that. Don't do me like that.
Calling you out.
Okay, don't do me like that.
You know, there's always moderation, even for people who are completely healthy. When you eat food, you know, you don't go and eat a whole bunch of hot dogs. You have a hot dog here and there. And then on other days, you make sure that you drink plenty of water and you eat salads or you eat vegetables. So I would say the biggest mistake that I tend to find are patients, now that they are transplanted, they don't have to go to dialysis, they're feeling better, skin is clear, that they kind of start to get a little lackadaisical
or go back to their normal ways of doing things.
Exactly.
Which got them in trouble in the beginning. Go
exactly.
ahead.
And so it's always very important that we kind of, you know, start this new life. It's a new life, and treat it like a new life. And with our post-transplant team, that is our job, to harass all of our patients to make sure that they're staying on top of their game.
I'm glad you said that. So then listen, oftentimes when I visit dialysis centers, the biggest question that they ask me, Michelle, is, talk to me about all the medicine that you're taking. A lot of them say, well, I don't want to be mandatory to take all this medicine. What kind of advice would you tell them? Because next, and then after that, I want to go into some possible scenarios on what happens if I forget to take my medicine. So first, let's talk about the medicine piece, because a lot of people on the machines feel like we're taking 50,000 pills. And I'm saying to myself, I'll take 100 in order to keep living and not be on the machine. But what would you say to them that's a little antsy about the medication?
You know, I try to be transparent. I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's a lot of medications. You know, there's no way to get around it. It's not optional to not take them. One of the good things about our medication regimen in the beginning is a lot of those medications are temporary. We have maybe 5 or 6 medications that our patients only need to take for about 3 months, and then once they pass the 3-month mark, then we drop a lot of those medications. Also, what I've tend to notice, for some people who get new transplants, you know, their blood pressure improves, and a lot of their health improves. So there is still room for more medications to be discontinued if approved by the physician. So I would want them to kind of stay encouraged and don't be discouraged about the medications. Also, because our post team, every time our patients come to the clinic, we actually organize their pills for the whole week. If they only come every 2 weeks, we organize their pills for the first 2 weeks. And we do that until the patient feels comfortable enough to manage their own medications. If they don't feel comfortable in managing their own patients, then they can still come and we will continue to fill their pill box if it helps them feel a little bit more at ease. I can't say that other centers do that.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say that that's one of the reasons why I really am behind GW 100%, because it was the little things, ladies and gentlemen, that was really important for me. You know, I've been running companies for next year be 30 years, and I'm used to a level of customer service, and you get that as soon as you get into the door, along with smiles and hugs and laughs along the way. So I think that's important. And for me, I started with 20 pills, and now I'm taking, I think I take like 12 now, but I started with 20, and it was a little bit for me to get used to, but now it's almost like clockwork, you know, pop them all in the same time, keep it moving. So it's not that much of an issue for me, and I'm looking like, hey, this is keeping me alive. And I'm telling you something. Dr. A.C. Williams was here, and every time, you know, I get emotional when I talk to her about it, Michelle, because every time I drive past Washington Hospital Center where I used to do my treatment, I get emotional because I don't have to make that left turn. You know what I'm saying? And I said to take 12 pills every day to continue to not be confined to a chair. I mean, come on. It's a no-brainer. And so I want to kind of encourage all of my dialysis patients and clients and friends who are watching the show today that when they call your name, baby, jump to it. You know, don't let people say that the medication and all this is taken, you know, is too much, because what is too much? You know, was it too much food that I was eating? Was it too much alcohol I was drinking? Because those are some of the things that kind of put me in the situation that I was in. So I just think that's important. But let me ask you this question. What about people, well, I want to go back to the other question. What happens if I don't take my medication? Let's say I forgot to take my medication.
So I always tell patients, if you forget to take your medication, call the on-call coordinator immediately. It's very important that you call the team. You know, it happens from time to time. It's important that it doesn't happen frequently because a few days of missed medications could be detrimental. However, it's not up to the patient to decide, oh, it's okay, you know, I'll just, you know, call us. You know, and then we can give you, you know, more instruction. We're on call 24/7. So I literally tell patients, I don't care if it's 3 a.m, I need you to call me. I'd rather you call me and I'm just like, Mr. Bennett, why are you calling me 3 a.m? It's not that big of a deal. I'd rather say that than for you to end up in the hospital 2 weeks later and then no one called. I always say, I'm not the physician. The patient isn't the physician. The only person that has the best insight is the physician, Dr. Melanson, Dr. Jagadeesan. So always call, no matter what time, and we can kind of tell you, oh, just go take it, or, you know, we need to increase your dose because you missed a dose. So definitely call. And I just wanted, if it's okay, I just wanted to circle back to patients who are on dialysis. I do acknowledge that it is very hard for some patients who are on dialysis to transition to post-transplant. What I've tend to see is some patients have been on dialysis for 10 years. They sit in their same chair. They have their best friend on the right. They have their best friend on the left. And to all of a sudden have this sudden disruption can be, funny enough, it could cause a lot of different emotions, excitement, also depression and sadness, because, you know, it's just a change. But what I like to stress is we have the best social workers on our team. And so if there's ever a concern about someone's mental status, we always encourage them to let us know. We are a multidisciplinary team. We don't just address physical needs, but we address mental needs. And we can definitely provide avenues for our patients to get the help that they need mentally, physically, all of that.
You know what? It's really funny that you said that, because as soon as my transplant was over, I would say after 3 months, I went by the center. And I'd never thought that it would have been an emotional roller coaster kind of thing, because one, this is going to be crazy, y'all, but one, a little guilt kind of came in because all of your friends are still on the machine. That's the first thing. The second thing is some of them, especially the brothers, was looking at me like, you only been here for a year. How you? And one of them actually said, how you get a kidney so fast? You know, all of that. And then, of course, the first thing they said, I don't know why everybody think I'm rich, because Lord knows I really wish I was. Because another guy was like, oh, yes, because you got that bread. You got that bread. That's and, of course, that wasn't the case. And we know that you can't, well, you're not supposed to pay people for a kidney and all that kind of stuff. So it was that wasn't the case at all. However, I just felt a little guilty because I went in there. They still on the machine. Everybody's still doing it. It's the same old, same old. So instead of me feeling guilty, I kind of turned that into, how can I encourage someone? You know, how can I say, listen, you're next, or what can I do? And that's part of how the C. Allen Foundation began, to be able to help people who are on the dialysis machine by doing things from our grooming sessions that we have with them, to our kidney Christmas, to our coat drive, our sock drive. We do so many things to make sure that that they really feel like someone is listening and that they're being taken care of. So that's really good. So then let me ask you this, because, you know, we get a lot of questions from a lot of our folks. And one of them was like, if their partner's HIV, can they still be together? Tell me about that. So
if a transplant recipient is HIV negative and a partner is HIV positive, we just encourage safe sex practices. So, of course, if you're in a monogamous relationship, then we just encourage that the partner gets tested and check their viral loads on a regular basis with their infectious disease doctor. And as long as their viral loads are down, we are comfortable with that. We would encourage any recipient who is negative and who has a partner who's positive to consider speaking with an infectious disease doctor to get started on PrEP, like Truvada, a medication like that, so that you can at least, take all the necessary steps to protect yourself.
So, wait a minute, let me ask you this. So, are you saying that should the patient should take PrEP?
Yes, okay. We would encourage that. Of course, we aren't an infectious disease center, but if a patient came to us with that question, the first thing we would say is definitely let's send you to the infectious disease doctor so that we can come up with a plan together, transplant and infectious disease, on the right way to keep patient and their partner safe. But as long as the viral loads from the partner is down and the patient is taking like a PrEP, and then just also practicing safe sex. So if you're in a monogamous relationship, that's always ideal. If you have multiple partners, which is your business, then we would recommend that you just, more than likely, we always recommend wearing condoms when you're engaging in sex with multiple partners. But at the bare minimum, definitely see the infectious disease doctor and see if you can get started on Truvada, PrEP, just to kind of protect yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the reason why I was bringing it up is because I have I had a friend of mine who said to me that being on PrEP, he had it started to affect his kidney. So what they did was they took him off of the Truvada and put him on something else that was more kidney friendly. And that's the PrEP that he's using now. So that's why I thought it was important that we bring that up. So let me ask you this question. Our time is almost running out, but how soon after transplant can you resume a normal life? I want you to talk to our audience about that because, again, I was under the impression that everyone would want to get on the transplant list. And when you start talking to some of them and they were saying that, they were getting a little discouraged in reference to so many medicine and all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to explain to them that, trust me, it's a drop in the bucket if you want to live a good life. You know what I'm saying? But my question is the normalcy of life after transplant. So I know we talked about a year before they can travel, but how long do you think they can just assume like going back to work, their regular daily activities?
I'm a big advocate for patients going back to work. Everyone used to hate when they would bring their paperwork to extend their disability form because I say, no, you have a transplant. You are healthy to work. So,
trust me, ladies and gentlemen, believe that because I called GW Transplant and said, I said, well, can I get a handicap sticker thing? So I faxed over the form to get a handicap sticker. They sent that form right back and said, sir, they said, sir, you're not handicapped. We can't give you that. And me, I'm trying to get my parking spot in front of the house. You know what I'm saying? The transplant, and I'm good to the transplant people. However, they sent that form back, and the lady was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to tell you, but we can't sign this form."
I'm a stickler for that, only because I just feel like, listen, this is why we get transplanted, so that you start a new life. And so I would say, typically, we ask our patients to kind of take it easy for the first 2 months or so. I always tell my patients, take advantage of your loved ones and your family and your friends because all you need to do is sit down, prop your feet up, and have everyone serve you. This will probably be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be served hand and foot. Once you've gotten the clearance from Dr. Melanson, our surgeon, then we encourage you to start back to work, but we'd like you to ease into it. Typically, we tell you, go back to work for 3 days a week for about 6 hours, and then add an extra day every week. And then until you slowly can work, your regular schedule. Now, if you're not completely feeling 100%, of course, we will extend that, that request for your work to kind of have you ease into it. But honestly, Dr. Melanson, by the time your 8 weeks is up from post-transplant, your incision is typically completely healed, and you can at least start going back to going to work. We wouldn't necessarily encourage our patients to do any heavy workouts or lifting in the gym just as yet, maybe after 3 months. And then 3 months after transplant, we do what we call a needle biopsy of the kidney. We take a small little sample of that kidney and send it for testing.
I remember that.
That one, most people don't forget that one.
Yeah, that was the only one I didn't really care for.
Yeah, I get that a lot. But once that biopsy is back and if everything is clear, then you really have the reins to pretty much do whatever you like. You can, the only restrictions that we have right now with COVID especially is just kind of being careful with travel. And we want you to be careful of shellfish. I think some of the guidelines have changed for that. It used to be a year. I think maybe it's 3 months now where we don't want our patients to have shellfish or...
so now you changed it to 3 months after. Because let me tell you something, everyone. I am the crab king. When I tell you I love crabs, I eat crabs every week. And that was the biggest thing that I could not wait for that year to be over with so I can have some crabs. And I tell you, April 9th, okay? Couldn't go to Berlin, but I had a whole bunch of crabs.
A bunch of crabs. That's always the big thing. If we know your transplant is coming up, like if you have a scheduled transplant, I always tell the patients, hey, get some crabs now because you're not going to get it for a while.
Well, I'll tell you this, Michelle, my time is up, but I just want you, before we go, I want you to talk to the audience for just a second, and I just want you to express to them how important it is to get checked out to make sure that there's no kidney failure. How important it is. And the reason why I said that is because we did for a brand last week, we did a taping on what do you know about kidney disease. And believe it or not, the majority of the folks that we stopped and some of the students, the majority of them had no knowledge at all. So my question is that what would you tell them, or how would you convince them to maybe just go and see a physician just to check to see if there's any kind of kidney disease?
Getting checked is absolutely imperative. I would, at the bare minimum, I would really push, just see your physician once a year, please, because a lot of the times what I tend to notice, people who are diagnosed with end-stage renal disease, they are diagnosed after, like when they find out they have hypertension or when they find out they have diabetes, which most times that was an issue long before then. So at the bare minimum, go to CVS, get your blood pressure checked at CVS, at those little machines. Take it serious, because I wouldn't wish dialysis on my worst enemy. It not only takes away time from loved ones and family, but it also just takes away a great quality of your life.
All right, everyone, so we're going to take questions from the audience. First, I want you to tell us your name and then let us know what your question is.
Hi, my name is Janae Price, and I wanted to know what is the lifespan of someone that is on dialysis that might not receive a kidney, and how long can someone be on dialysis?
That's a good question. I don't know what the most updated information is, but dialysis patients, the average time on dialysis, and I'm sure Dr. Melanson can probably confirm or deny when he comes up, I think it's about 10 years typically on dialysis is about how long patients last before, unfortunately, they come close to the end of life. Dialysis really does put a strain on the body. And so, that's about the average time. If a patient wants to get on the wait list, their wait time on the wait list starts from the first day of dialysis. And the average wait time on the wait list to get a kidney is about 5 years.
That was perfect. Well, guess what? Our time is up, everyone. We are really excited because Michelle Whitehead has came into the building and has really enlightened us in reference to after transplant, what would need to be done. So thank you so much, Michelle, for coming in, and we look forward to seeing you back at the GW Transplant Institute. We appreciate you. Thanks a lot.